Good evening. Thank you for staying. My name is Kai Boyd. Thank you for joining us this evening. In 26 years as an exhibitor, we've shown a lot of amazing films, but there are a handful of films which I am incredibly proud of championing, and Origin is one of them. So thank you for coming. When we were planning this year for the Indivisible film series, we originally had a different film slotted in here for February because I was thinking it was President's Day happens in February, and I thought, well, why don't we show Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator? And we are going to get there. We are going to show Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator. But I had this moment going to sleep one night. I'm like, Origin, why aren't we showing Origin? And so I got a hold of Roxanne and Julia, and I was like, hey, we need to change this. We need to show Origin. So I'm so glad that this worked out. And I need to give a special shout out to the people at Array, who are the owners of the film, who provided it for us tonight. So thank you for coming. I'm going to turn this over to Roxanne and what I'm sure is going to be an incredible conversation.
It is my great pleasure to introduce the moderator of our panel discussion tonight, Steve Rohde, who some of you may know. Steve gives an awful lot to Indivisible, and hopefully he gets a lot back as well. I would like to read a little bit about his background. He is a writer, lecturer, and political activist. For almost 50 years, he practiced civil rights, civil liberties, and intellectual property law, and has won significant First Amendment victories in state and federal appellate courts. He is the past chair of the ACLU Foundation of Southern California and chair emeritus of Bend the Arc, a Jewish Partnership for Justice. He is the founder and current chair. He is a founder and current chair of the Interfaith Communities United for Justice and Peace, member of the board of directors of Death Penalty Focus, and a member of the Black Jewish Justice Alliance. He is the special advisor on free speech and the First Amendment for the Muslim Public Affairs Council. He is the author of books, American Words of Freedom, The Words That Define Our Nation, and Freedom of Assembly, and numerous articles and books on civil liberties and constitutional history. He is co-author of Foundations of Freedom, published by the Constitutional Rights Foundation. He is co-host of Law and Disorder Radio and a podcast. He also has a new 10-episode podcast called Speaking Freely, a First Amendment podcast, exploring the most important Supreme Court cases in the area of free speech and free press. I think he's probably been very busy lately. It is produced by Ms. Studios and streaming on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and MsMagazine.com. Steve Rohde.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for staying. I think we're going to have a stimulating conversation even after such a stimulating, heartbreaking, powerful, and inspiring movie. When Rox and I were planning this discussion part of tonight, we were so delighted to read part of the biography of Dr. Kim Hester Williams, because it said that her teaching and scholarly research is on the racial representation in 19th century literature and contemporary popular culture, as well as visual representations of race in contemporary film and new media. When I first spoke to her, she told me that she teaches the book Cast and the movie Origin to her students, and it was simply the perfect person to have us to join us today. She is professor of English and Black Studies and Ethnic Studies at Sonoma State University. She's co-editor of the award-winning collection Racial Ecologies, published with the University of Washington Press in 2018. Currently, she serves as co-editor of the journal Legacy, a journal of American women writers, and previously served as guest editor of the special issue of Gothic Nature 5, Decolonizing the Eco-Gothic. She also published and co-authored essay, Familial and Communal Histories as Environmental Care Work, in the academic journal Environmental Communication. Beyond all this and her teaching, Professor Kim, as her students like to call her, and she's permitted me to call her tonight, writes poetry grounded in an eco-feminist, black womanist tradition of poetics. She most recently published her poem, I Saw a Butterfly, in Voices Unbound, an anthology of international poetry in 2025. Time and your indulgence permitting, I've asked Professor Kim at the end of our conversation to read one of her poems. So welcome to the Indivisible Film Series, Professor Kim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson was published almost 6 years ago in 2020. It received scores of awards and honors, as we just saw, spent 58 weeks in the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list, which called it, quote, an instant American classic. It was very well received, although one reviewer, writing a provocative review, said as a criticism that Wilkerson never offers a convincing argument for why American history and society are better understood through the lens of caste than of race. We saw how the movie, how she tries to make the case contrary to that criticism. What's your overall assessment of the book? How does it illustrate the pillars of caste through India, Nazi Germany, and the United States? And what's your reaction to the criticism that American history is better understood through the lens of race rather than caste?
Okay. Thank goodness I had a preview of these questions. Well, let me say that first and foremost. First of all, thank you so much, Steve, for inviting me here. I'm going through a lot of things personally, and I forgot that I gave a talk for Black History Month in Fairfield that I had completely forgot about because I was thinking about this event, and this morning I had to rush over there and give that talk, which went very well, by the way.
You sound like you have a lot in your life, like Isabel Wilkerson.
Yes, a lot going on. So, but I'm glad I drove out here. I'm happy to be here. I will confess this as well. And when I found out that it was a discussion of the film Origin and that you would be, doing a showing of the film, I had to debate with myself whether or not I would come just for this part or whether I would come and watch the film. I've seen the film, and it's a difficult film for me to watch. There are many moments in the film that are heart-wrenching and frankly speaking, traumatizing for me, especially as a Black person. I will just be completely 100% transparent about that. And I think my partner, who's El Salvadorian, we saw the film in Marin when it came out, and he was literally in tears during the part with the little boy in the pool. And he, was very macho, and he was just there in tears streaming down his face. And I as well. That is probably the hardest part of the film, I have to say. outside of the loss that Wilkerson suffered and sort of pushing through. So, so to answer your question, what I lectured on, what I talked about this morning in Fairfield at the Aldea organization, which deals with foster care, mental health. You know, it's an organization that you know, helps many families and foster children and people, you know, needing mental health services. What I said to them, and what I'm saying to my students in the Black Poetics class, in which we are reading portions of Caste and definitely watching the origin film, is that what I think is most important in this moment is anti-Blackness. And that's what I talked extensively about this morning. And I think this film and the book, I disagree with the criticism. The film already tells us that she proves her case. So I think that that's probably why the film was made, frankly, to go ahead and to kind of solidify that, the process and the thesis. And the thesis is proven. Race versus caste, I've had many conversations about this when the book was released. That's not a new debate. But I do think that what's important in the work that you're doing, which I commend you all in Indivisible for doing, is the idea that we need in this moment in time. Caste is one of the most important books of the 21st century because we need to be together. The whole dividing and conquering, the divisiveness though, right? It's a brilliant, your organization has saying indivisible, the indivisible name, I would say as an English professor, brilliant. Brilliant, because that is what we need, and that's the strength of what Wilkerson has done. And that bringing us together in looking at whether caste or race is more important or more appropriate or more accurate is actually not the question. Her methods and deciding to look at three distinctive groups and see how this, you know, deep-seated, hateful division of people happens, and how it is structural and personal and effective. That's what the strength of the book is, and that's what makes it the argument, you know, about caste a very important one, because it's one that shows us the connections between various groups of people that have something very important in common. I think the idea of categorizing and separating people, you know, I'll just give you the example that I've talked about a lot since it happened, you know, with the Obamas being depicted as, you know, apes, as monkeys, as apes, you know, which is very, as you probably know, in the jurisprudence that was common in the 19th century. So it's a very old trope that was pulled out. And so the idea of dehumanizing people is very much rooted in caste, the idea of caste. And race is just another term, right? First of all, race is actually fake. It's not even real. It's totally made up. And there is no such thing as white people. That's totally made up, right? It's just like, you know, it's made up. So caste is just a more sophisticated way of understanding this very elaborate, sophisticated system of separating people and subjugating people and building hierarchies that exploit people.
I thought to myself, maybe, and far be it from me, but maybe outcast was the title. Outcast, and we haven't, you know, because it captures that notion of alienating a group, of othering them, and then you can justify virtually any treatment, as we saw in the examples and in those three societies.
But I will say, again, as an English professor, I have to say that and Noelle Oxenham-lives in the audience, and she's taught me so much about language, I have to say. And I'm just big ups, because I think about many of your talks, like the but, and you know, the word but, and you know, and so caste is different than outcast. Outcast is just someone who on the outs, on the margins, and that is true and accurate. But cast, again, is brilliant because think of it as in sculpture. When you cast something, it's fixed. You fix it, and it becomes immovable. And I talked this morning about the ways in which anti-Blackness is so deeply entrenched and almost immovable. Like the Afro-pessimists believe that there is no civil rights movement, no kind of non-violent movement, nothing will unfix this, right, except revolution. And they're pretty radical and they're pretty, you know what I'm saying, controversial, but their ideas about the entrenchment of this have come to light because we thought a post-racial society, and they were all saying at that time during the first Obama election, absolutely not. There's no such thing, and that is a that's a falsehood. And they were right. So caste is a good way of sort of thinking about how something is so fixed, and that's what Isabel Wilkerson articulates in the book.
You know, you heard my biography in terms of law, and I am so angry at Chief Justice John Roberts, who says we have reached a colorblind society. Why do we have to keep up laws and anything else? Because we've reached a colorblind society. The blindness of that statement is what is so outrageous. So let's talk about the movie itself for a little bit. What's your assessment of it? What did you think of the decision to make a biographical drama exploring her struggle to research, write, and publish her book, rather than, say, a documentary about the ideas in the book? And how do you teach the film in your classes?
Well, I think, first of all, the film is beautiful. And I love and teach often Anna DuVernay's films, 13. You know, there are many films that her work is just so powerful, and the visual is powerful. So that's the difference between the book, what the book can relay and what the film relays. Also, people don't seem to like academics too much, especially nowadays. You know, we're just like not, right, the most popular people in the room. And so what the film does is it takes it out of the realm of like the bookish thing, right, where you sit and you have to read and you have to think and these ideas read, to the personal, which again is what we need. We need people to understand what trauma is. But what DuVernay does in that film is she ties the trauma of loss and grief to caste, to the caste systems, to racism, to discrimination, to subjugation, racialization, all the things that we talk about in ethnic studies. She makes that more palpable by bringing in the personal stories. And you just really can't, it's hard to see that, and I use that term purposefully, by just reading the book or listening to the audio book. The book is brilliant, and I love the book and the film, but they're two different texts. They're not the same. They're two different separate texts. One is, I don't even think I would call, speaking of how I teach it, the first thing I say about the film to students is that it's not an adaptation of the book. It's a separate text in and of itself. And it's visually stunning, you know, seeing, you know, Isabel Wilkerson's character lying down and looking at the people who have passed away, looking at the boy and telling him he's gonna be okay, the leaves falling. This is what we call in film studies, the cinematography is stunning. And that, you're not obviously getting that in the book. So the book is important on its own merit for separate reasons and for separate, I would even say separate audiences. And it just has a different, you know, different purposes than the film. The film reinforces the ideas in caste, but expands them and kind of reaches out to the audience to bring them in a much more personal way.
My wife Wendy, who's here with us, was originally an English teacher, and she taught To Kill a
My
Mockingbird.
favorite people.
Oh, we get along.
Yeah.
She taught To Kill a Mockingbird. First, she taught the book and explored the issues that it raises. At the end of the semester, she showed the movie then to go deeply into the book before students saw the film. How do you teach? Do you teach that way? You teach cast, and then you show the film and discuss it?
I usually have students read the book before they look at any kind of adaptation or film text. Yes, I usually do it in that order. But sometimes I switch it. I switch it sometimes. It depends on what the text is. It depends on what the film and or book is. I think that that's a brilliant way to teach To Kill a Mockingbird. I think that's the appropriate way, a very effective way to do it. With this, I think you could do it either way because they are separate texts. And the students this semester have so much reading to do, so they're only reading excerpts from cast. So sometimes what I like to do is do it simultaneously, have them read excerpts and then show excerpts from the film and go back and forth. Because they usually have to watch the film on their own, but in class, we're stopping and starting. Like today, tonight, it was a film showing. But in class, we don't often just go from beginning to end without stopping and having discussions. Like we would stop and have discussions about what happens with the pool, the incident.
It's such a challenge to discuss ideas, and you need an entry point. And I think what was powerful, you need accessibility, and you need a human narrative that links ideas to people. And I think the film was brilliant in that respect. I think it took its time to get to know her and the losses she suffered. And then the end of the film is quite polemic, quite an examination of her ideas, looking at the pillars. And also I think the movie is an invitation, if you haven't read the book. I think there are going to be a lot of orders on Amazon today. Or
Independent bookstores.
Independent bookstores.
Napa Book Mine, women-owned. I shout out. You can go online and order books, any of the books.
Thank you.
Through Napa Book Mine.
Just lost the entire audience by me saying how foolish. Or go to our local bookstores.
Exactly. Copperfield.
Yes.
Libraries.
Shout out to that.
I was in the Sonoma County Library recording a podcast with Hillary Avalon, the Indivisible podcast. That will soon be made available to you. And I just marveled at libraries, at free books.
While we have them, yes, absolutely.
And the trashing of libraries that is going on through this administration and museums and history itself. We'll actually get to that in a moment. I do want to say that we'll have a few more questions together, but we have a microphone, so if you were provoked by the film, by something we've said tonight, we will take a little bit of time for your questions as well. Indivisible Sonoma County Film Series, organized by our Truth in Media Committee, is based on the premise that at their best, motion pictures can have a powerful impact in informing the public about important historical and contemporary issues, prompting the public to think more deeply about those issues, and hopefully to take action to help create a better world. That's a tall order. What do you think is the role of film in society? And looking over the last 50 years, how would you assess contemporary filmmakers in fulfilling that role? You have 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, I will be brief. I will say, let me just start with Sinners, which we are also studying in the class. It's a Black Poetics, junior level Black, the class is called Black Poetics. And that's we've been looking at that film for 2 weeks now, and it's the most nominated film, and it's a brilliant film. Again, visually stunning, but the issues, the social issues. I mentioned this morning, and I think this is apropos to your work and to the film origin and to the book cast. When, if you've seen it, you've seen it. If you haven't, I apologize. You can go look at what I'm saying. But at one point, Sammy, who's the blues, the young son, the blues player, he asked Mary, who is the love interest of one of the cousins, the Shire cousin, that, I don't know, it's not the Shire cousin, it's the more brazen, I think, cousin, but Sammy, she has the one drop of blackness. Her father's mother was half black. So she's phenotypically, as we like to say, white. By all appearances, she's white. And but she wants to be part of this community because she's in love with one of the cousins who is black. So Sammy, who's also black, asked her at one point when she comes into the club that they have built, what are you? And we had a long discussion about this in our class, about the question. Because it's not, what's your ethnicity, what's your background, where you're from, what are your parents, how do they identify? It was simply, what are you? And so she responds, it's like the back and forth about what do you mean, and then she says, I know what you mean. And she says, I am a human being, which is really powerful. Right, and so that there's this way in which film is able to, you said it already, Steve, it's able to communicate ideas in a way that's visceral, in a way that is tangible, in a way that's accessible, as you said. And just visually, you are taken in by films in a way that you're not. It depends, books, you can do that too. Literature and books are important and they can do that too. But not in the same way. I'm not saying one is better than the other, because they're both important and they're both very effective. But films are effective in a different way. And this film, Origin, is one that it's like you can't look away from it. You can't ignore what it's doing. This criticism about it, doesn't prove whether race is, more important or caste is a better way to describe, systems of oppression, racial oppression in America. Perhaps race is a better term. Well, the film answers that question again, time and again. And it answers it in a way that, again, you are taken in by it. You are sort of immersed in it. You are involved in it. You're part of what is happening in a film. Books are also individuals reading books, exactly. It's a solitary exercise, whereas look at the community here that the film has, created. And so that's another, important idea about film.
The public service announcement that ran before this movie urges people to come to movie theaters to see movies, to experience that sense of community. And when we hit upon this film series, because that's what Indivisible is about, is community and bringing people together, and what No King's Day and these public demonstrations of being shoulder to shoulder with other people. So I think being in the theater is part of that. I'm going to mix it up a little to get a sense of whether how many questions we have in the audience. I don't know if anyone is near a light switch and can put on some lights within the.
This is what you got.
This is
okay.
it. So we have a microphone, and if Rox has it, because I do think it'll help for everyone to hear the questions. We do have.
I'm curious about your students and what their responses are to this, and do you see, different generational differences in how people are responding to these kinds of stories and realities? So, any thoughts on that?
Well, we haven't gotten to this film or the cast book yet, but the students have been responding really in a very curious, engaged, and concerned way. I don't have a lot of, well, I do have an older woman in the class, a woman who is not the traditional college-age student, and she's brilliant. She's really, she's always contributing to the class discussions. But I can tell you, on balance, these students are just really concerned and feeling themselves very alienated and feeling like they live in us. I'll tell you what my almost 29-year-old says all the time, and she's a music composer, she's an artist, and she says, we live in the bad place. Simply that, we live in the bad place. Everything, gender-wise, sexuality, ethnicity, race, as a Black woman, when Kamala Harris lost the election, I was distraught. Not as much as my mom, who I was very concerned about, but I was distraught. And I went to bed that night and I just said to my partner, who again is El Salvadorian, I said, why do they hate us so much? Meaning Black women. I meant specifically Black women. And he said, well, you already knew that. You already knew that. And that response and just the confirmation of what I was thinking and feeling made me just super depressed for a while after the election, because it was true. And I did know that. And I know it academically, I know it as a professor of ethnic studies and Black literature and all the things. And women's and gender studies, I know it. Implicitly, I know it. But for it to be told back to me, which I think again is the power of the film, that it's truths. Those are truths in the films. Personal truths, historical truths, social truths, seeing a couple that just wants to be together and in love and have a child and have a family being ripped apart for an arbitrary categorization, by the way, right? These are all, this caste system is arbitrary. Just like when Mary says, I'm a human being, because you look at her and she looks like she's white. What does that even mean, right? So, yeah, I mean, I can see the pain on my students' faces when they are confronted with what's happening now, today. It's painful for them. And they're very concerned and they don't know what to do. Some of them are activists, like you all, and some of them participate in the protests and do all that they can. I have a few students who are pro-Palestinian activists who were totally shut down. The university all the universities shut all of that down. There is none of that at Sonoma State or any other university that I can think of, which is stunning. What that makes me think of is that scene in the film with all the empty bookshelves. That's what that makes me think of. And you do First Amendment speech work, so it's chilling, and you can see that they are almost just kind of numb. And I'm not used to seeing that with students, actually.
I have stood in the opera plots and looked down through that glass, and there are white bookshelves, that's not a creation, empty bookshelves.
Wow.
And Heinrich Heine in the late 19th century said, first they will burn books, then they will burn humans. He said it then. Truth, you mentioned truth. We named our committee Truth in Media. A federal judge a few days ago ruled that the demolition of the exhibits in Philadelphia of the president's house, where George Washington had 9 slaves, and that since 2010 we had an exhibition from the National Park Service naming those 10 human beings and telling their stories, and that unannounced the National Park Service chiseled away those exhibits and the federal judge ordered them restored. And in her opinion, she called it truth that someone to come to that exhibit without those exhibits was not getting the truth. And we need to say that more.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what it was from there.
Thank you.
One of the things that I think the movie is brilliant at that you didn't touch on that I just wanted to add is there are very few films that give us the artist's journey to creating their work of art. And one of the brilliant things for me of what Ava DuVernay is doing in this film is showing you Elizabeth Wilkerson's struggle, her, what she's up against and how she wrestles with, is my idea correct, and the influences of it, and how it all kind of churns together to make this incredible book that she wrote. A book that, some people have said, well, it's unfilmable, and that may or may not be, but, the way to create a film about the writing of the book, I think is really brilliant, and it speaks not only to writers, but to the process and struggle that we never see from all types of artists.
That's my favorite part of the film. Thank you for saying that.
I think there's someone in the front.
That is my favorite part of the film. I really, and I was gonna talk about it, but, I don't know, Noel, if you know if there are any other films like that. I mean, obviously there are films about artists, but what you just articulated that DuVernay does, I don't know if that's actually been depicted in that way in film before.
I can't think of it.
Yeah, and you would know. You would know. So I think that is brilliant, and it's so, as someone who is a writer, and a teacher of writing, composition and also Black poetics, that process, the process of the artist is really done so well in the film.
Good, please.
Yeah, and that was going to be part of my question too. And Kim, very good to see you again. And just sort of the background, I have taken Kim's Black Poetics class. I was a graduate student and she was on my committee. And that class was absolutely fucking brilliant. And I am sad that I cannot keep taking it.
Is that how you put it in your assessment?
Yeah, in taking it again, because I was a non-traditional student. I learned so much there that I didn't know and understand, and I'm quite sure that there's so much more to learn. But to my question, and back to Isabel Wilkerson's journey of trying to articulate caste and race in America, a lot of people, what I sort of saw is people misunderstood or had a certain concept of race in America that's different from how the rest of the world sees it. So when she's having that conversation with the lady in Germany who says, no, it's not the same between Jews and African Americans in the United States, Isabel at the moment is kind of flustered and flabbergasted, it's like, well, how do I explain this difference? And I would like for you to speak a little bit to your sense of how it's different, and talk a little bit how Isabel, rectified that particular thing, and then maybe put some of your opinion in there about how she did it. Because I think that's a really important thing to consider, that we see race and racism in America very different than the rest of the world does.
Well, I think the character who plays the woman in Germany, the German Jewish woman, is correct in the sense that there are distinctions. And the extermination of Jewish people during the Holocaust is distinctive in history. But it is not unrelated to what happened to African Americans. I think that's what Wilkerson gets to. What is the relationship between these things? What is the through line? And that's what she does. That's what she discovers in her writing process, that there is a through line. We have to stop thinking of ourselves as unconnected, as somehow we're all, on these islands of identity and experience. That's just not gonna get it. That's how they are able to be successful in really kind of reifying these categories, these caste and racial and gender categories. So I'd say that I'm gonna just have to say, Black people were exterminated. Black people were, the Afro-pessimists will say to you right out that Black Holocaust is real. Black genocide is real. We don't use the word Holocaust because that is appropriate for the experience of Jewish people. But genocide, that's another thing altogether, right? And many Black scholars will say, in no uncertain terms, that there was a Black genocide, and that it is still ongoing, right? So, there's a relationship. There are connections, and that's what we need to keep our minds on, as opposed to, the oppression Olympics. No. Right? That's what Wilkerson gets to our attention. That we can't be engaged in who was oppressed more and who was oppressed in a different way. What we need to be engaged in is, what is our relationship as human beings to one another? What do we have in common? And how can we transform, which is what your organization is doing. When you said that, you said that's a lofty goal, but in the Black community, no, that is the goal. It's always to transform and make a better society. There is no other choice.
And what hasn't been mentioned is the extermination of Native Americans, which I think validates caste as an overarching structure. And also what is so ominous about, I'll call it systemic hatred, is every society, the dominant class finds its target. So in each example, the dominant society was finding its victim to go after, in India, Nazi Germany, and here and elsewhere. And that is what is so threatening about that dominance. It will find its most vulnerable communities, its marginalized communities. We can add immigrants to the caste analysis. What's going on with immigrants is a version of caste hatred and discrimination. So, say what?
Yeah, exactly.
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 So a few more questions.
And let me just say,
Yeah, please.
to go back to the question about race, I don't talk, you're not hearing me talk about race, because I'm gonna be in concert with Wilkerson and with DuVernay in the film. You know this about me, I don't believe in it. It's fake. It's fake. So I don't wanna give it that kind of power. And I'm writing about this right now, because the thing about what you said, Steve, this idea of race is not only destructive to the people who are the victims of it, but it is also destructive to the proponents of it. It's a self-destructive ideology.
I'm on.
You mentioned the R word,
Go.
revolution. I think there's a lot of constituencies that feel like that needs to happen. I grew up in the 60s, and I feel like this moment in time is actually, we're closer to that than any time in my life. And I think the No Kings Coalition represents an amazing opportunity. I'm just curious about your thoughts about whether it's possible.
I was at a pro-Palestine rally, which was massive, and it was in the early stages of the movement, and it was in Montreal, Canada, because I was at a conference there in Montreal, Canada. It was the American Studies Association. It was mind blowing how many people were at that protest.
What year was this?
This was like, might be 4 years ago, and 3 or 4 years ago. And I passed by a black woman with an afro, And people had signs and all kinds of things going on, but this woman said, "Revolution, bitch." And it was a shirt too. And I was thinking about, like, again, the people who do, the scholars in the Afro-pessimism school of thought, by the way, the students are the ones who make the classes, not me. They're the ones who make it brilliant, and so much, so productive. They believe that. They believe we've tried everything, and stop trying the same thing over and over again. Stop trying to talk to people who don't want you to talk to them, who don't want to talk. You know, in the Black community would say, you know, I just want to talk. And it's a funny way of saying, no, we're actually going to do more than talk, because talking is now working, right? And so I don't know, I think we are closer than we've ever been. Now, different people define revolution in different ways. I think Caste and the film Origin are revolutionary texts. They're revolutionary acts. You know, it's when you start talking about the things that Wilkerson talks about, you might get some death threats, and I imagine she has. I know Nicole Hannah-Jones, who wrote 1619, she did get a lot of, you know, violence directed toward her, you know, linguistic violence, but also threats of physical violence. So it's a risk to talk about these things, because they are truths that people don't want to hear. Even the people who are allies don't actually want to hear the full truth. Because I tell you, I said it again, watching this film, I was like, I don't want to watch this film again. I really don't want to do that. Because it's so painful, and this is hard. This is hard. And to do this work is not, it's not easy. There are a lot of risks associated with it. Heather Heyer was mentioned in the film and the book. And wow, think about that. Think about Minnesota. You know, this is serious business. And I think the serious business is gonna get more serious.
Let me see hands so I get an assessment. Yeah, here's one, but where's the microphone? I can't see. Okay, thank you.
I'm just wondering how everybody in my life can see this movie. Like, how do people get to see it?
Well, Kai might know that better than most.
Where you can watch the movie, is that the question?
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
I think people should have been watching this instead of 2 hours last night.
Hell yes!
Well, I didn't watch last night, and I told them this morning and this was a group of my mental health workers, foster care providers, you know, that do all of this brilliant, beautiful, necessary social work. And I said to them, no, I'm not going to watch 2 hours of that show. And they all agreed. They were all in concert with that.
Yes, Kai, here's how other people can see you.
I have a microphone.
One
I
second.
have one now too. Okay, how many of you have a Sonoma County Library card? How many of you know about Canopy?
Oh, yes.
Through your library card, you can sign up with Canopy. It's a free streaming service, and you can watch Origin on Canopy for free. If you're one of those people who pays for Hulu, you can watch it on Hulu.
That's correct.
So it is widely available. Check it out. Can I ask another question?
Sure, you've got the microphone.
Because of the way film distribution in Hollywood works, this movie and another movie, American Fiction, were in the marketplace at the same time. And American Fiction got a lot more recognition and prestige on it. And I'm curious what you think about American Fiction and what it's trying to say versus Origin.
American Fiction is the one that has the America turns to the fascist person. Is that one?
No, it's the one where he's writing a book
Oh,
And he changes the
Percival
title.
Everett, Percival Everett.
Right.
Yeah, he
Erasure,
He
yes.
changes the
The
title
erasure,
of the
yes,
book to
yes, yes.
F-U-C-K.
Yes, it's the erasure, the adaptation. That is an adaptation, actually. Yeah, that's a great question. I didn't know that they were simultaneously released. Well, one is actually about literature. Isabel Wilkerson, as was said in the film, is more of a journalistic writer. And Percival Everett is a creative writer, and that book is about process too,
Yeah.
a writer's process too. Oh man, you're asking a question that we don't have enough time for that. Because one is a black man and one is a black woman. So now I'm gonna go off into a whole tangent on that. And I don't think I should do that.
Microphone is out there somewhere.
I have a microphone. I think probably like everyone, I was very moved by the moments in which children appear in the film. The little untouchable boy, of course the boy in the swimming pool, the little boy in the window with his book. And at a certain point it struck me that it's not just that one is moved on an emotional level, but I think there's something about the notion of cast that actually requires conceptually and structurally innocence. Because as human beings, there's just this little tiny moment before we become acculturated. Because whether we're oppressed or we're among the privileged, the fact is we all become acculturated. And I felt like that's a huge point she makes in Caste, that it starts to come to seem, even if the moral outrage persists, it still starts to feel natural that we inhabit these different rungs. And so the moment where as human beings, there's just this pure shock, like how could this possibly be happening? That's the moment when we see what a construct it is, like that old song from South Pacific, you have to be carefully taught.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. You know, and another child that I had forgotten about is the couple, the Jewish woman and the German man, and then that scene where she's taken. They don't show it. I'm assuming the child is taken too, but then they pan to the back seat. We don't know that time has progressed so much that they have a child, and this child's in the back seat witnessing the mother being, taken so violently and brutally taken, dragged really away, and the father being dragged and yelling, and then it cuts to this child in the back seat, who again I'm assuming would have been assumed to be Jewish and taken as well. And that's another, I agree with you. When you see those scenes, you think, well, what happened to these people are in their formative years. What happens to the baseball, the little guy? We learn that he becomes an artist and he's successful, but that kind of racial trauma, that kind of black trauma, what did it do to him and his formation into adulthood? Totally, it's just a hard film to watch. They don't really give you a lot of levity in that film.
No.
We have a little more time for one or two. There's a hand.
I always find myself going back and forth between how optimistic and pessimistic I should be about the human species. And I was just curious what your thoughts are. I'm going to get too weird here, but do you think the human species is hardwired towards identifying being afraid of another and setting about to subjugate the other?
No,
Thank you.
I do not, because no one knows else to say. I do not, and I think that that's what happens. That's why these structures, as Steve said, are successful, because they attack the innocence of us all. That's what they use. The innocence, and then we get hardened, and we don't come into the world with a lack of empathy. Children are naturally empathetic, and that has to be trained out of them. That's what I believe. But I also believe humans aren't doing good. And I've said that in every single talk I've given. Humans are not doing good. And so we got to figure out why and how to fix that.
Let me tie that.
Yes, patriarchy, and let's not forget capitalism.
Let me tie that into my last question. This is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Indivisible is going to be doing a lot of work on that over the course of this year. I think it's important to remember that Dr. King described the founding as a promissory note, a promise that all men are created equal. But he said that promissory note remains unpaid. Where does America stand in this payment of that debt and its struggle for equality? You hinted at that in the last phrase. And maybe to add to that, what do decent people do in the face of what we're going through right now?
Well, I said also this morning that Black people, and I say it often, are the most patriotic people. Black people believe. That's why King said that. You know, he believed in America. Black people believe. David Walker, Phyllis Wheatley, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass. We can go on and on and on. On down the line, Jesse Jackson, who just passed away, right? Black people believe, but perhaps the problem is not the belief or the faith in the promissory note and the system itself of democracy, I mean. Perhaps the problem is democracy itself and how it was structured, how it was founded. Because remember, you brought up the founding fathers, so now you make me have to say, Jefferson owned many human beings, many. And the sexual exploitation, the sexual violence against Black women, historically, a lot of the founding of the country was contingent upon the exploitation of Black people, the extermination of indigenous people, the exploitation of Chinese workers, we can go on and on. So this is a Wendy Brown moment now. If you don't know who Wendy Brown is, she's a sociologist and she's really, really smart. And she gave this talk about, is democracy the right one, right? And it was very controversial. She was at UC Santa Cruz. She gave a talk and it was deeply intellectual. And it was hard to hear, like her say, maybe that's what we should be thinking about. Whether that's, again, the Afro-pessimist. We keep trying this thing. 250 years of it is maybe we're not asking the right questions. Maybe we're not thinking about the right things. I don't know that you know a lot more about this than I do because I'm a literature professor. But I will say, as a Black studies, feminist, 19th century Americanist, I'm not sure. I'm less sure the more we progress and the more we don't see progress. Not the kind of progress that we need to see. How in the hell is Trump in a second term?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Of one term, fluky, but two is not.
Yeah.
Two is not. And for sure, and revolution may mean changes need to happen because humans aren't doing good, particularly in this country. It's unfathomable. And this is a question for you. Is this what we have now indicative of, representative of what the founding fathers envisioned? And second follow-up question, do you agree with what the founding fathers envisioned? What did they envision?
Well, we're gonna have you back.
You just
But
said that word.
I'm not gonna duck it.
Okay.
I am currently the contributing editor of a series in LA Progressive, an online publication I write for. The title of the overarching set of essays is All Men Are Created Equal, Hypocrisy or Hope? So that's my thinking. The Constitution was a pro-slavery document and an anti-democratic document because it created the Electoral College, which is anti-democratic. It counted enslaved people as 3/5 of a person. It extended the fugitive slave law, and it gave equal power to small states and large states having 2 seats in the Senate of our country. All of those anti-democratic institutions exist to this very day, except because we had the Reconstruction Constitution when we got the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which our right-wing scholars like to forget. They want to return us to the 18th century Constitution, forgetting the amendments to the Constitution, which amended those provisions in large part. So it's a continuing struggle, and I'm on the hope side of that formula because it's the only way that I can wake up every day. I asked you to bring a poem today to close us out, and I'm so eager to have you share that with us.
Thank you for your answer. So democracy is not the problem necessarily.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. That makes me feel hopeful.
Good.
Okay, I will end with a poem. That's sort of a response to that, I think. Thank you. Okay. My glasses on. It was hard for me to figure out which one to, Okay. So this goes along with some of the themes that we talked about today, and I decided, it's a newer poem, and I decided to, it was a prompt in my poetry workshop, and the prompt was to speak to this quote from Martin Luther King Jr. We must use time creatively in the knowledge that the time is always right to do right. That's such a Black poetics statement. And and then he says we must walk on in the days ahead with an audacious faith in the future. That's right up your alley. So my response to that prompt was this: what we must do now. Must we be audacious again? How many more times? How many more battles? How much more walking, running to the finish line of justice, not finite? Not the kind of future, but the now, tangible and shining brightly like the sun. Not the warmth of other suns, but one sun, one shared warmth, the kind that is acceptance without the separation of colored go here, not there, and white only, clenching in hate and violence and destruction by any means necessary, including self-destruction and planetary annihilation. Yeah, that future, those days ahead, yet not far away. The fatigue of faith washes over me. It is suffocating, pressing down on my better angels, my creative time, my free will to be, to do good. Breathless, yet still running and running and running, trying to stay the course or the court with stamina abating. Fighting with the supremacist air, choking yet still alive. Wondering and sometimes wandering about what we must do now.
Professor Kim, thank you.
Thank you.
Really so honored that you're part of us. We're going to look forward to other ways to be in partnership with you and in community with you. We're so grateful for tonight, but we're so grateful that you wake up every morning and you teach and you write and you do this work. And that all of us are benefiting from that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Likewise, please keep doing what you all are doing. Thank you for giving me this shirt today, but I wore it this morning, so. I just feel differently than I felt that night of the election when I was told, well, you already know they hate Black women. And this makes me feel a salve, a way forward, and I really want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you for staying tonight. Come to all of our future films in this series. Come out, do something for justice and faith in this country, in the kind of country we hope for.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.